the last 3 weeks, I've been back home in Arkansas with my mom, helping care for my dad after major health complications. And I honestly saw things children are never really ready to see concerning their parents. I watched my father fight to accept a new physical normal. I watched him deal with the disappointment of rehab milestones that did not come when he hoped they would. There was surgery, there were complications, there was a hospital stay, and there were a whole lot of moments where all we could do was be present with what we could not control. And yet, hidden inside of all of that heaviness was a gift. I got to be with my mom and dad for 3 weeks. I got to care for them. I got to offer back in a small way the kind of love that they poured into me my whole life. It wasn't easy, but it felt holy. And over those 3 weeks, I noticed something about my mother. When everything felt out of control, she cleaned. Not casually, not here and there. She cleaned that kitchen. Even with her own health challenges, I would find her up in the middle of the night when the house was quietest, cleaning her kitchen until it was spotless. And on Saturday, I told her, "Mama, I see you. Not just physically, not just emotionally, not just spiritually, not just relationally. I see you." She understood immediately because outwardly, I am my dad. The appearance, the voice, the cadence, the mannerisms, but inwardly, I am my mom. The way I process, the way I empathize, the place my mind goes when life feels overwhelming. I saw a woman standing in the middle of uncertainty, refusing to be washed away by what she could not control. She told me that none of us had been here before, and to keep from getting swept under the tide of the moment, she anchored herself in the one thing she knew she could control, her spotless kitchen. That hit me, because when I started looking back over our family history, I realized something. In the hard seasons, Mama was always doing something in the kitchen. When tension was high, she was in the kitchen. When the family was hurting, she was in the kitchen. When questions were bigger than answers, Mama was in the kitchen. Now I think I understand. The kitchen was not the issue. It was the anchor. And here is the leadership lesson. Sometimes leadership doesn't look like a microphone. It doesn't always look like a meeting. It doesn't always come with a title, a platform, or a public decision. Sometimes leadership looks like creating order in one small place when the rest of life feels disorderly. Sometimes leadership is the quiet discipline that keeps you from drowning. Sometimes leadership says, "I cannot be faithful today in everything, but I can be faithful with that one thing that's in front of me." And we need to pay attention to that. Because in our families, our schools, our churches, our organizations, and communities, there are people holding things together in ways we do not always recognize. They may not be loud. They may not ask for applause. They may not announce the weight they're carrying. They just keep showing up. They keep making the calls. They keep checking on people. They keep creating order. They keep anchoring the room. And sometimes, because they do it so quietly, we mistake their consistency for capacity. We assume that they are okay because they're still functioning. We assume that they are fine because they are still serving. We make the assumption that they are strong because they have not stopped. But strength should not make someone invisible. Consistency should not cancel our compassion. And quiet leadership still deserves to be seen. So this week, the strategy is simple. See the quiet leaders, honor the anchors, and create healthier control. We cannot control every outcome. We can't control every diagnosis. We cannot control every delay, every disappointment, or every person's response, but we can control our posture. We can control our presence. We can definitely control our tone, our prayer life, our follow-through. So today, I want to honor my mama. Not just for being my mother, but for being a quiet leader, for showing me that strength does not always roar. Sometimes it wipes down counters at midnight. Sometimes it restores order in silence. Sometimes it keeps loving when the room is heavy. Sometimes good leadership is keeping things moving when the heart is tired. And sometimes the cleanest place in the house is not just evidence of preference, it is evidence of perseverance. So here's my challenge to us. Before we move too fast into another week, let's pause long enough to see the people who've been anchoring us. The mothers, the fathers, the caregivers, the spouses, the siblings, the coworkers, the quiet leaders who keep creating stability while carrying storms we may never fully understand. Tell them you see them. Not just what they do, who they are. Not just their labor, but their love. Not just their strength, but their sacrifice. And then ask yourself, what is my kitchen? What is the one faithful place that I can restore order when life feels too big? What is that one space, that one habit, one prayer, one conversation, one responsibility that helps me stay anchored when the tide starts rising? Because leadership is not always about controlling the whole storm. Sometimes leadership is about finding the next faithful thing and doing it with love. So Mama, I see you. I saw you. I honor you. I thank God for you. And to every quiet leader listening, may you be strengthened where you're tired, seen where you felt invisible, and reminded that what you do in silence still speaks. Let's do our best to enter this week with cleaner hearts, steadier hands, and deeper gratitude. Because sometimes the kitchen is not just where the dishes get done. Sometimes the kitchen is where love holds the line. I'm Jesse Radford for Jesse Radford Speaks. Have a great week.